Hello, adventurers. My name's Tyler.
And I'm Richard.
On today's episode, we're going to be giving our first impressions of Dungeons and Dragons 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide. Welcome to True Strike.
Howdy, folks, and welcome back to the show.
Yo, what's up?
What's up is the new Dungeon Master's Guide. That's what's up.
Yeah.
We got it in this week. I managed to snag the collector's edition, so I got the one with Wolf on it, which is really cool. You managed to snag the one from 2014.
No. To be all right, full transparency. I already had this one. It's unlike the player's handbook, which Worthey graciously provided to us early and things like that. And we were able to have some coverage up and stuff beforehand. That didn't happen this time.
No
PDFs, nothing early, no review copy. The only copy we have, hard copy of the Dungeon Master's Guide, Richard purchased himself.
Yeah.
And the PDF version, or the D&D Beyond version we have, I purchased. So
yeah.
No Worthey paid for anything. This is entirely our opinions and everything, like it was before too. But
I mean, it would have been anyway.
Exactly. But this time,
now it's with our cold hard cash,
exactly.
as you like to say. Speaking with our money on this one.
Yeah.
Which I had to go to 2 different game stores to get my collector's edition.
Well, that's the thing. You could have gotten the regular one, but
yeah.
Wolf.
There wasn't. I know it doesn't match my edition of the player's handbook because I do not have the collector's edition of that one. But I couldn't turn away this just because the artwork was just like chef's kiss.
It's my favorite. And I mean it, like out of all the books and alternate covers Dungeons and Dragons has ever put out, I think it's my favorite
this one's
cover.
My favorite. Yeah.
It's real good.
Yeah.
So I'm very envious.
Yes. Well, I had to get it because the PDF just wasn't doing it for me. I need a physical book. I want to hold it. I want to read it.
Yeah, it doesn't. I'm glad it's there. It's extremely convenient. And when it comes to running games and stuff, I actually prefer having the D&D Beyond copy so I can pull it up very quickly. Yeah. And like the search feature is like indisposable. I love that. Just
I like making
pull it up.
People wait while I flip through pages.
But just sitting down and reading through a book, you 100%, you're right. The hard copy is better. Speaking of sitting down and read a book, in typical Tyler fashion, I have not finished this book. Richard, in typical Richard fashion, has finished this book. And, we weren't able to get our hands on this stuff until a couple of days ago, which is actually put our recording schedule off a little bit. You guys are going to be seeing this very shortly after we record it, which normally we're a little farther ahead of it, give me more time to like get it up on YouTube and stuff like that. Not this time. This time it's going to be a big rush. So all of Richard's takes are going to be fresh, and all of my takes are going to be not as detailed, but also fresh.
Yeah, but you have skimmed through most of it, though.
Yes, yeah, I've hopped around and gotten to everything that interests me. I have not gone through cosmology because it doesn't interest me. That's not true. It does, but I also read Worlds and Realms recently, so that was fresher on my mind. So I figured I would devote time to more interesting things like the basics.
Now, this is by no means going to be like a full like review
Absolutely.
Of every portion of this book, because there is so much here. So much here that we would be here for hours if we actually went over everything. Also, we're not actually going to hold the book up and show you pages from it or anything like that. There are plenty of other videos out there if you actually want to see parts of this, like physically seeing the book itself rather than just 2 guys talking about it. There's other places for that. But yeah, there's just a lot here for it to be a full-on review. So this is more of our first impressions of things. Yep. And like some of the stuff that we do want to talk about, because obviously there's some cool stuff in here or some not so cool stuff in here that we do want to, bring up. So yeah, keep that in mind. This isn't going to be a full-on, just straight-up review of everything.
We're just 2 dudes talking about a book.
Yeah.
Speaking of that book, I wouldn't mind coming back and revisiting this and giving our like overall, we've had a couple months with it, review of things, after we've gotten I mentioned just a little bit before recording, the Monster Manual.
Yeah.
Because I do think, and I'll get ahead of this a bit, that this book is almost incomplete until that book comes out next year. Just because I like the direction they went with the encounter builder this time around.
Yep.
But I'm looking at it with the lens of our current CRs and, stuff like that for monsters. But that's going to change. Your monster abilities are going to change. And I want to see the final package.
Yeah. You can't look at the encounter builder in this and make a judgment call on it right now. I don't think.
I do think it's better.
I think it's better on paper.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, I don't think you can actually come to a real solid definitive answer as to if it's better or not until you have more data. We just don't have the data points right now to be able to really, really come up with like a definitive, this is great or this is bad,
sure,
or this is middle of the road.
Now, we have seen some stat blocks here and there, like sprinkled out from Worthey.
Yeah.
Because they know we're craving anything we can get our hands on. And monsters look way tougher.
Yes.
I'm very excited.
Which we've talked about when we talked about the player's handbook. We talked about how the players have gotten more powerful.
They're so much more powerful. We've you guys have been upgraded for our Curse of Strahd campaign. And the monsters have not been. And some fights that I thought were going to be kind of difficult are trivial. You guys are just plowing through encounters. And I'm like, okay, time to just start, do I just bump up stat blocks like preemptively? Do I add in more creatures? We're at this really weird point here in the middle. And I'm, at least with this new version of the encounter builder, I can use that. And it, even as is with our current 2014 monster manual, it allows me to scale for more difficult encounters because pretty much everything got bumped up a level. And I know I'm skipping ahead and out of turn here. This is the podcast. But anything that was like deadly is now like a hard kind of encounter or whatever. And everything is just, if it was super difficult before, now it's one notch lower. And that super difficult is even harder. And it just can be even more difficult once these new monsters blocks come out.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited and interested to see it. We're gonna have to pause Strahd until until we get that book.
That's why you want to play Dread next week.
You're on to me. You got it. And then we got Christmas break coming up and Thanksgiving. Yeah, we're gonna have to wait a couple months.
Christmas episode before. Yeah. And then we have to have the beach episode that we talked about.
You know what? Wait, did we settle on a beach? No, it was spa.
Oh, it was
I was gonna do. We were gonna do hot tubs, like hot. All right.
So yeah, we're just going to jump right in, and kind of what we're going to do is kind of go over each of the chapters and just kind of talk a little bit about it, what's in the chapter. Not going to go through every single thing that's in the chapter. If there's something cool that we do want to talk about, we will touch on it and bring it up that way. You had something?
Yeah, basically just adding on to that we're going to attempt to keep us in the rails with using the chapters as our guidelines.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah,
I've already hopped the track.
You've already hopped the track a little bit, but that's okay. We can get back on the track.
Yeah, well, and we're better to start than the basics.
Yeah, the basics. So the beginning of this book is going to be your basics on how to prep for a session, and examples on how to play and how to work with your party to make a fun game.
Yes, like the very first thing, here, like talking about what does a DM do? I try to put myself in the shoes of a brand new player, right? You're gonna sit down with your friends, and if you go out and you all get these books together, someone's gonna be the DM, and if you start with this book and it just explains it very nice and neat for you, and just really lays things out. And you mentioned example of play. Specifically, I read through every word of that part, and I was not floored, I guess that's not the word for it, but incredibly impressed with how genuine it felt. It felt like an actual game, not just like a chat GPT, like, how do you think a game would go with a dungeon master, multiple players? It felt like real players having a conversation at the table. And I really like at one point they show the DM, ask for, what kind of save do I need to make for that? And how much damage do I take? And stuff like that. Like, because the GM and the DM don't always memorize actually everything. So it lets you know as the DM in the first chapter, you don't have to know everything. It's okay to ask your players to know things themselves. And I mean, that's how we run games. And I think that's the right call.
Yeah, no, it definitely is.
And not to mention the example they do is, and here we go, hopping tracks again. There are there are some scenarios in this book that they include for you, and they're like different levels. You can jump in at different levels, and they're all very different. Everything from like just like encounters and fighting and blah 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 to social encounters, like higher level social encounter and like Feywild stuff. It's rad. And this like example of play is straight from part of one of those encounters. And I'm like, that's even better, because then you can go to that scenario, look at it, and, page back to this and see exactly how it was, how, someone, air quotes, ran it. I love that for a chapter 1 for a new player. And even as someone who runs game, just to get like a, how would someone else do it? Am I doing it right? Kind of check yourself, sort of situation. Like, oh, man, I've been in my ways for so long. What's it like on the other side of the screen?
I don't know if doing it right is the right terminology, but different ways of doing
yes, exactly.
The better way to looking at it. But no, it's very nice to have something like that in the chapter right here. It's good. I like it a lot.
Every DM is unique.
Yeah, every DM is unique.
It's part of the chapter.
I think one of my favorite things about this chapter is actually the section where they talk about prepping for games.
Okay.
I really did enjoy that. This is not new information for me and for you, for anybody that's run a game. You're not going to like glean a ton of new information in here, but you might see new perspectives on things. And I think that information is maybe not necessarily something that would be helpful to me, but something that would have been helpful to me before I ran my first game ever.
Oh, for sure.
Information on like how much time should you put into prep and what should you do to prep for a game? Are you over prepping? Are you under prepping? That kind of information is something that I didn't really think about having a written text for in a book until you see it on page and you see, okay, well, this is an important thing that should be talked about.
Yeah,
and that was a good standout for me from that chapter. So.
It's definitely good. I've mentioned it before on the show, but our very first session that I ran, and I panic prepped for like days and days and days, weeks beforehand. I was already worried about it, and I had what turned out to be like 3 to 4 sessions of stuff prepped, and I didn't know that. I had no idea I had prepped so much and in such detail that, while I'm kind of glad I did, because it meant that first session I felt ready for anything. Mm-hmm. It also meant that the next few couple sessions I was already ready.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, this is really cool. And the more we've played and the more I've gotten to know the players, the less I prep.
Yeah.
Because one, you guys just go everywhere now. Like, I don't know, maybe you guys were being nice originally and you're like, oh, we'll stay almost where you want to be.
Storyline a little bit.
And then I always remember, like, you guys, it's one of those scenarios you're like, we're going to go this way. I'm like, oh, but the plot's this way, but it circles back around. Now, the plot doesn't matter. There's no plot. It's just like, okay, they're going to do this thing. They're going to go to the castle. They're going to save their brother. No, they're going to save themselves by doing this other thing. And, panic.
Yeah, prep is an interesting thing.
Just don't prep.
Prep.
That's my tip. Don't prep.
So yeah, that was like I said, a neat little addition that I liked. But overall, I like the chapter. I like where they went with it. It's not going to be something that is for everybody, but there was definitely some useful information in there.
One tiny thing I'm going to touch on. I'm not going to pick apart every chapter so much, but I believe it's important that they mention the mutual respect.
Yes.
That as a DM, you need to respect your players and their wishes and what their desires for the game, and that's something you can set up at session 0. And like, hey, what kind of game do you guys want? Is there anything you don't want in the game? And this is the kind of game I plan on running. And as players, you should have a level of respect for your dungeon master. And like Richard mentioned, we're not going to go off the track too much. We're going to respect your decisions. We know where the narrative's going. Like, we can see what you're trying to go for. We're gonna poke here and we're gonna prod there, but we're gonna go with the general flow. And especially for a new dungeon master, that's the best. Because if you're not used to coming up with stuff on the fly, can be really difficult, or at least like nerve-wracking, and you don't want to scare off a new DM. Especially someone who's like, okay, I guess I'll give it a shot, guys. Please. And just letting them do the thing. Like, you're all learning this together. Like, just be respectful of one another. I'm glad they point that out too.
I think it's funny that one of Tyler's things, like his main strong point here, was all like, oh yeah, like the DM obviously has a path that you want to take, and you should probably like try and take it and everything like that. When his favorite thing to do in anybody else's game is to completely ignore the railroad and try and get the DM to force him somehow to follow the pathway that he knows he's supposed to be following. Like, oh yeah, we have a caravan of people, their homes have been burned and they're walking north to try and find a new home. And Tyler's all like, oh yeah, are you gonna follow them? And he's like, no, I think I'll make a home right here on the side of the road, and this is where I will live the rest of my life. And then I start, what's the rule for building a house? And it's true.
But to be fair, I always pull it. And you're not a new DM. If you were new, I would be much more forgiving. But two, I completely acknowledge what you're trying to do, which is why I tug as much as I can. And then once that runs out of like room to stretch, I give back.
Don't believe me? Listen to any of the actual plays where he's a player. So moving on, we have running the game.
Chapter 2.
In Chapter 2, running the game, this is going to talk about knowing your players, so actually knowing who's in your game, what they're wanting to do in the game, and what they can do, essentially.
Yeah.
And then everything in here from group size to even things like multiple DMs, which is an interesting thing to bring up.
That's not something I would have expected.
Yeah,
right.
I didn't expect it to be in here because that is something that you're not going to see all that often. You may see versions of it, but like they actually cover every type of multiple DMing in here, from just switching off on the same campaign DMing, or DMing the same campaign at the same time with different aspects with different DMs, which is interesting. There's a bunch of other stuff in here. So this is how to resolve actions in the game. So this is everything from your ability checks to saving rolls, difficulty class, and stuff like that, advantage and disadvantage, consequences, damage, everything from the social interaction that you brought up,
and not just improvising damage in scenarios and stuff like that. It's just tips on that whole. Hey, if your players do a thing, you sometimes just need an answer.
Yeah, you just need an answer.
And God, the amount of in our studio we have very poor internet currently. And the amount of times I've just had to be like, it does this much, and I roll some dice.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be like, hold on, let me walk outside, get some service, come back in with the real answer.
And there's nothing wrong with improvisation.
100%.
It's not even a real answer versus like the answer that's chosen.
Is it the answer the book gives you, or the answer you come up with? Like if 2d6 damage sounds appropriate, then it is.
Then it's fine. Yeah. Improvisation is the game.
Yes.
So like that's cool to see it in writing and to actually explain it out and how you can, use it in your game. And I think that's important because I think a lot of people get hung up on that idea that if I don't do rules as written, that I'm doing it wrong. Which is definitely not the case. There's also stuff in here about running, like I said, the social interaction, which you already talked about, as well as exploration and combat.
Your three main pillars.
Yep.
Yeah.
Character advancement. This is a good section. I think my one of my favorite things in this section is consequences and stuff like that. I like consequences of actions, and I like talking about consequences of actions, and degrees of success.
I'm so excited that's in this book.
And I love that was included in here.
Yeah, that's something I didn't expect.
Success is amazing. And if you don't know what we're talking about not such a hard line between success and failure. Like
right.
I'm asking, for the players to give me a roll of, a 17 is the DC to do something like climb a wall or, like scale, a rampart or something like that, and they fall short of it by 2.
You roll a 15
or by 1. And the idea is that you can give them success but at a cost, and then have consequences that follow that, which I just love that. Other games have done this, and we've played
100%.
other games with it, and I like it a lot. It's everything that we did in Dreams and Machines was degrees of success. So even a failed roll a lot of times was getting you marching further down the road, just not necessarily the way that you wanted to, maybe with unintended effects.
Yeah. Monster of the Week's like built on degrees of success.
Built on degrees of success. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's something we've always included. I think where I can include it, more to a degree now, because though it's something we've always kind of had, where if someone like rolls really high or gets a natural 20 or whatever, we always kind of add some flair
Yeah,
to
a little
it.
bit of flair and flavor.
Or if you fail terribly, you know, the fail is always worse, right? But now that it's been stated the way they want you to do it, and we basically have the permission, not that you've ever needed permission for your home games, but it's put me in the, you know, the mindset of, oh, not only is it okay now, but now it's expected.
Yeah.
And so now I'm thinking about that when I'm asking for that 17. I'm like, okay, so I'm asking for a 17. Are they going to get a 15? Or are they going to get a, you know, a 25 or something? Like, let's see what they end up with, right? Like, are they going to shoot way above it? Because yeah, now, I mean, just you could basically expect that as a player now. Like, I'm actually looking for those higher and lower numbers, or those just so close numbers where, okay, you need a 17, you got a 16, you do make it up, but a rock slips, you know, from the wall you're climbing and it makes a noise, and you think some guards might have heard it and they're coming to investigate.
Yeah.
Everybody make me a stealth check.
Yeah. No, I like it a lot. It's great to have it out there. Just like I said, another one of those things where a lot of people like automatically think of that as a thing, but basically giving them permission to, right, is more of a like, oh, this is something that is welcomed and something that, you know, like I could introduce in my games.
I'm glad it's here.
Yeah, I'm glad it's here. The next chapter that we have is my favorite chapter in the entire book, which is the DM's Toolbox.
This is the chapter that I wish I had 100% read because already. I just haven't had the time. You know, Richard, our day job, I was trying to just burst through this chapter because it's legitimately interesting to read. Like, and I'm not a good reader, y'all. Like, you know this if you watch and listen to our show. Like, I'm terrible at it. I'm really slow. I lose track and everything all the time. I'm one of those guys that, like, I read a sentence 7 times before I actually understand what I just read because I forget what I read. Like, if I'm not fully, you know, grasped by the narrative. And some of this stuff is just so interesting for the game that, like, next page, next page, next page, next page. And I'm going to finish this chapter like tonight. Like, I have to. Like, when we're done recording and you head home, I am not going to start editing this episode. I'm going to pull out my tablet and D&D Beyond, and I'm going to start reading this chapter again and finish it because it's legitimately super interesting. And I want to know what you have to say about it.
Yeah,
because
this
love
chapter
it.
to me is the meat and potatoes of this book for me. Period.
Really?
Yes, there is a lot going on in this book. And kind of getting onto a little bit of a spoiler here of my overall view of this book.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, like, you're spoiling a manual of sorts.
It is interesting because, and that would be like if somebody were to come to me and say, "Hey, I'm a game master. This is my level of experience. Do I buy this book? Do I have to have this book? Do I need this book?" And there's a lot of stuff in this book. And there's a lot of stuff in here, like for you or me.
Yeah.
Chapters 1 and 2 were a fun read for me. I'm never going to look at those again.
Sure.
I don't need to. There's nothing in those chapters for me to look at. There's nothing in those chapters for me to reference. Looking through the other chapters in here, there are some interesting things, but there's a lot of other chapters in here that I'm going to need less or maybe very, very infrequently. This section of the book, I think, has the most applicable set of rules that could be of use to a dungeon master or a game master of any type. This is not stuff that you're going to reference every single game, but this is the part of the book that people are going to pull out to look something up or to have a solution for a thing or a mechanic for a thing that's going to come up in a game for them, which is why I call it the meat and potatoes of this book.
I mean, they nailed it when they call it DM's Toolbox, right?
Yes.
And it's funny because
not lying.
With this book right here to my left, the 2014 Dungeon Master's Guide, you pull this out for magic items.
Yeah.
And that's almost exclusively it. Everything else you can find on your DM screen and stuff like that. Versus, you're right. Like, this is a whole chapter.
Yeah.
That's just chock full of stuff you're going to be referencing.
Yeah, this
often.
is stuff that you don't necessarily have to reference. You don't need anything that's in here. But this is the way to not have to think about a thing and have a mechanic for it or have a solution for it that's easily accessible for you. Like I said, which is why I call it the meat and potatoes. This is where you're getting the real sustenance out of this book. And this covers, the first thing in here is actually something that I was surprised to see that I don't necessarily want. And it's funny to say that I love this chapter, but the part of this chapter that I don't really like that much is alignment.
Yeah, they could toss it for me too.
They go
I'm right there
real
with you.
heavy into alignment, further and deeper than I thought they were going to. They included the alignment chart in the player's handbook. I thought was interesting. I was surprised to see it because I've
Then or now?
In the new one.
Well, the player's
handbook, yes.
Because
alignment is one of those things where I don't think we need it.
Okay, I'm with you again now.
I don't think we need alignment at all, so I was surprised to see it in the player's handbook, but it wasn't heavy-handed. It was literally a small paragraph off to the corner. We talk about alignment slightly. I don't mind it being referenced there. In this book, they go even heavier into alignment, into the importance of alignment, which I don't necessarily like. I know there's some people out there that love alignments and they want alignment. I think it's redundant and I don't think it's necessary. So it's the only part of the DM's toolbox that I don't like this chapter, and that's the alignment.
I'm right there with you. And I, redesigning the player's handbook, if I was in charge, I probably would have had it either. But I'm also not a game designer.
Yeah, true.
So I'm probably wrong because there are definitely players that will, I want to play the evil character and try to theme their thing. And players, if you're ever going to play an evil aligned character, talk to your dungeon master first because there's big consequences and things for doing that sometimes. And your DM needs to know from the get-go of the campaign that you're playing an evil aligned character. So, not that I have any personal stake in that currently, but so I'm not surprised. Oh, if I really break it down, that it's in the PHB. But like you mentioned, it being here and that it's so like intense. Like I just pulled up here. Like I'm not going to use this. Is I guess what I'm going to get to. Like
well, that's the thing is you're only going to really use it if you're using the mechanics that are directly tied to it, which is getting even deeper into the book and even deeper into, I guess I would say, higher level gameplay,
sure.
Right? Because the only time really alignment is going to start to really mean stuff is when you're accessing planes. And you're dealing with planar stuff, because then they actually have hard and fast rules for alignment and certain planes and access to planes and what happens on those planes. So that's kind of where it goes, but that's something that, like I said, I could live without.
But they also built that in.
But they also built that in. But it is.
So you wouldn't have needed this if that wasn't a thing.
Out of this whole thing, that's the part that I don't like. But then you get to chases. All the really cool stuff, which is you have rules for chases, which is not going to come up all the time, but it's really great to have hard. It's important when it comes up that you can just go with, that you don't have to make up rules for a chase. They all exist here. You have the information about creating your backgrounds, which is a lot of fun.
This is one that I was surprised it wasn't in the PHB.
Yes.
Like to the point where one of our players, when converting their character to the 2024 edition, was like, "Oh, how do I do the custom background again?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's right."
Yep.
Here? It's not here. Where is it?
This is on a list of things that I think should have been the PHB.
Yeah.
This is number one of them. Yeah, there's more that are in this book that I think should be in the player's handbook. But this is the first one, creating a background. It's nice that we did get it. Should have been in the player's handbook, probably where the information on the planes was.
And it's that thing where, like, in the PHB, it could have been with the asterisk of work with your dungeon master to create this, create a background, always talk to them first, blah, 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 versus this is straight up, it's like hidden away in the DMG where your players might not even know that's an option.
That's what I'm saying. There's no information in that you need to gatekeep from a player.
Right.
Like there's no sensitive
straight
information
up, no.
in the creation of a background that needs for it to be gate kept into a dungeon master's guide. So it's just kind of a weird addition, but at least it's here.
No, that's the thing. It's like, of course, I'm glad it's here, period, because now I can go back to the other player and be like,
hey, we got an option for this.
It's here now. Let's do it.
We have all the other creations, which are great. So creating a creature, creating a magic item, creating a spell. Love those.
It's funny to me that I always just think of that as something I just do.
Yeah, it is.
We just do it.
It's something that you just do, but I like the guidance here, and I also like the randomness of it that they allow for, right? So they have tables and stuff like that you can...
I love tables.
That you can roll for if you're feeling indecisive about something or just spicy about something. You're like, I don't know what I want this creature to be able to do. Let's roll a die and figure out what we want this creature to be able to do. That's fun. I like that. So not necessarily a needed thing, but it's cool. Curses and Contagions. This is my favorite part of this section. I love the idea of curses and these magical conditions that you can be afflicted by. And they have a bunch of them in there, just these different sicknesses that are cool, that can be added into a world to make it feel more alive and just something that's different. I think it's really cool. I like that section. Ways to handle death is in this.
I'm glad they touch on it.
Yeah, it's good to have it touched on. Doors got their own section. It's like a full-on page.
I love it so much.
About doors.
And guys, it sounds silly, but it's good. It's legitimately good. What's the door made of?
I actually laughed out loud when I turned the page and saw that it was just doors. And I'm like, they did not just devote an entire page to doors. They 100% did.
It's good, and it tells you like not only like what's the AC of the door, how much hit points it has if you try to bust through it. It tells you a general like difficulty for lock picking the door, and based on how well was the lock made, what's the material of the door. Like it's good.
Yeah, it's nice. It's good material to have. I like it. There's a whole section on dungeons, creation of dungeons, which is good. Probably could be bigger.
It's half the name of the game.
Yeah, it could be better, but I do think that it is definitely enough to get you started on creating a dungeon and making something up. I don't think it needs to be it could be bigger, but I don't think it really needs to be any bigger than it was. You have environmental effects. You get into all kinds of crazy stuff. Like you get into firearms in this section, explosion information, like really crazy stuff.
I'm super glad they're not shying away from the firearms and stuff. The grenade launchers.
Oh yeah, they are not shying away from
straight
stuff.
Up.
Like
this is how all this works.
Yeah, information about making grenade launchers and laser rifles and like how to adjudicate having like laser guns in your games.
Yeah,
there's a section that includes the DC for using a calculator, which caught me real off guard.
I hadn't actually got to that yet. I remember you mentioning it.
That it's there. Yeah, there's a DC for using a calculator, a DC for using a chainsaw, or a computer. I love it. They're really leaning into this multiverse thing.
So good.
But then you also have a bunch of other stuff in here. Rules for hazards, rules for dealing with mobs of creatures. I thought was really, really cool. I like that idea of, like having to deal with a large group of things like skeletons or rats or whatever it may be. Little spiders rather than doing with individuals. There's guidance in here for non-player characters, which is super helpful for new DMs, being able to like make successful characters, NPCs. Throughout the thing. Everything in here for designing settlements, which I thought was really fun. I like that a lot, especially because there's more tables in there that you can roll on. Love a good table. Siege equipment, which I'm probably never going to use. I don't see myself running a game that includes siege equipment. Information on supernatural stuff and even traps. This is, like I said, the biggest section of usable things. Like, you're not always going to need to access siege equipment or have rules for it. But when you do, it's here. You're not always going to have questions about, characters gaining renown in a kingdom or something like that, and what that renown can do, like what it means to have a character that's well known. But there's rules for that in here.
Great.
There's also a section I kind of glossed over too because I wasn't reading everything. This is also where you're finding information on gods. Which is interesting. If you want gods to be prevalent in your campaign, you want these, this pantheon, there's information on gods that you can use. And there's also information on building your own pantheon. So coming up with your own gods for your own worlds and stuff like that.
Which one of those general things is, hey, do you have a cleric? You might want to read this.
Yeah, you might want to read
Do you not have a cleric in your party? Well, you might not need it. You might be able to, get by not having that headache.
Yeah.
I made the mistake of accidentally opening up the supernatural gifts section. That artwork with that unicorn.
Yes.
Chef's kiss. That is so perfect.
No, we haven't talked about the artwork in this book, at all, the entire time that we've been doing this.
Just the cover.
But yeah, just the cover. But there is so much good artwork in this book. I think I know I was trying to get to it, but I think I know exactly what you're referencing. In the supernatural gifts section.
Easiest one.
Yes. Yep. Yeah.
It's so fun.
Cool.
The player's handbook and the DMG have such wonderful art, and it's not that I didn't believe in Watsy was going to pull this off, but it's nice to see that the faith was well founded, and I'm so freaking excited for the monster manual.
The monster manual is going to be like unbelievable.
Man, art for every creature. Yeah.
No, the art in this book is
so
really good. The player's handbook, I think, has better art because there's so much more of it. And it's more focused on specific things like classes and
that makes sense though.
Stuff like that.
It's there's between the classes and the subclasses and the different creatures towards the end and stuff like that. It's a lot of art of like scenarios and things. So
no, but there is good artwork in here though. Like every piece of artwork is great. I love it, and there's some really cool Easter eggs in there with some artwork that includes like the cartoon kids all grown up and everything like that, which I love when they do that. They did that a couple times in the previous book. Threw them in here too. I like it. Our next chapter is creating adventures. So this is everything about basically creating the adventure that you're going to send your players on.
Yep.
And this is everything from ideas on how to lay things out to like actual structure of what your game should look like. Like if you want it to be episodic, if it's going to be a one shot, how do you set things up, and how do you set up all the dominoes for your players to knock them down or to know how to knock them down. And this covers a whole bunch of stuff in here, from everything from like encounters, so your social encounters, your exploration, your combat, ideas on how to roll all this stuff into an adventure and how to bring that adventure to a close.
Mm-hmm.
And that includes like rewarding your players and moving on to the next adventure. So like, how do you roll that into more stuff for your players to do, or does the adventure end there and then they start new stuff? This also is where we bring in the you mentioned the sample adventures earlier on. We were talking about this book.
Yeah.
So there are level 1, 2, 3, 5, and 7 examples of like basically small adventures that you can have, and they cover in great detail. Like you could.
Oh, they're good.
Yeah, these are amazing, and they're like super detailed. So easy to just drop into a game.
Just enough though.
Yeah.
Because you can pad out and add in your own, I say pad out, but like add in your own details and, I'm going to say fluff, but I mean that in the best way possible, to make this your own adventure, your own encounter, your own scenario.
Yeah, it would be nothing to take any of these and skin them to your specific players.
For sure. Yep.
Like making a connection between your player and the world that it's in. Like with the first one, the level 1 one is one called The Fouled Stream. And it's an adventure about a stream that has gone sour and trying to find the source of the corruption. If you have a druid in your party, it's going to be so easy to just roll your druid into this storyline and have them be that. If you don't have a druid in your party, it's easy to just drop your party into this story and have them play it out and figure out, beginning to end, what's happening with this stream. And every single one of these adventures is great for that. If you're just using it straight out of the book as it is, or skinning it to match your players or your campaign, would be super easy. And love having them in there.
I mentioned it earlier, but the idea that the level 7 adventure isn't like a combat, like it's a social encounter.
Oh, yeah, a social encounter.
That's so fun for me.
Yeah, that one's based on a ball.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a nice big ballroom in the Feywild, and like it's super fun. And like you said, it has nothing to do with combat. It's all social combat, which is really, really cool.
Yeah.
Our next chapter is creating campaigns. So this is gone from just a single adventure to generating and creating an entire campaign setting for your players to go through, which I think is like one of the bigger goals for a lot of game masters, right? There's a lot of people that want to be a DM have this grand idea of a story that they've written in their head, start to finish, of this, like overarching story of triumph or sadness or whatever it may be. This lines out everything you need to be able to put that into a playable form for your players.
Absolutely. And something we haven't mentioned yet, but if you have the digital edition of this, so if you have it on D&D Beyond, it includes blank templates and stuff. So right here,
Oh, yeah.
in this chapter, there's a campaign journal, for example. It's a printable PDF you can go through, and it's a spot for your session number, session date, the adventure and session title, important events from earlier sessions that might, have bearing in this game, brief summary of what's been planned for the session, and additional notes. Just something for like organizing your prep, and it's got adorable artwork on it. But it's not just this chapter. We've skipped it a bit. There's stuff like this throughout the whole book.
Yeah, throughout the entire book, in every one of these chapters,
Yes.
there's all kinds of cool printouts that basically allow you to track everything.
Yeah. When you mentioned in chapter 1, like getting to know your players and the mutual respect and stuff, there's one just for like, hey, you can pass this out, you can keep it anonymous even, like you can collect from everybody. Mm-hmm. Where like, hey, do you have any like fears? Do you have any boundaries? Do you have anything you don't want us to go over? Is there anything you do want us to go over? Like for sure, go ahead and give me that feedback, and you can collect it and like take it, and like you don't have to bring, names out or whatever. Like, okay, just, to yourself, no, all right, no spiders. We're going to keep spiders out of this game.
No cockroaches.
No cockroaches. Yes, yes. You know that now from now next time. Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's tons of useful tables that are not tables, but sheets throughout this entire thing that you can get right out of the PDF, print right out.
And you've got the physical one, right? Like they're in there too, but you'd have to photocopy.
But you have to photocopy it, which is interesting because if you look at the bottom of every single one of those pages, there's actually a little thing that says like, you're allowed to photocopy this and mass produce it.
Really funny.
Yeah.
I mean, good that it's there.
Yeah, but who's using photocopiers these days? Everybody's got the PDF. They're just going to download it, which is great. So.
There's so many people that will not touch D&D Beyond, and you know that.
That's true. That's true. But yeah, no, there's tons of this for the creating of campaigns that's in here. There's a lot of different ways this whole creative campaign. Again, we get back into tables. There's a lot of tables in this game that are either just random rules or ideas for how to actually set up your campaign.
So many tables.
And how to make it run and make it work.
Yeah.
And then they follow up the end of this with an entire campaign setting.
Yes,
which is Greyhawk.
This is a whole section where I will devil's advocate myself to no end.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how I feel about this.
Oof. So Greyhawk, I read it.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing setting.
It's really cool. I haven't gone through 100% of it, but everything that I have, there's so much.
Yeah.
Like laws and crime rate, all kinds of stuff. Like
so yeah, before we move on to the next chapter,
Greyhawk's its own thing. We're going to sit here for a second.
I will say Greyhawk is massive and kind of feels out of place. I see why they put it here, because this goes at the end of creating a campaign. So reading this is a whole campaign. However, it kind of, I think it hurts creating a campaign as an overall thing, because you go I'm looking at this through the eyes of a new game master. And I'm reading this book and I'm like, oh, creating my own campaign. This is going to be a great chapter. And I read it all and I have this really good idea for this campaign that I want to create. And then I move immediately from that into Greyhawk, and anything that I could write, anything that I'm going to come up with isn't going to even touch the amount of detail that has been put into Greyhawk. And that's not a bad thing for Greyhawk. That's great for Greyhawk. It just feels like Greyhawk needs to be its own book. Like this should have been its own standalone thing, or at the very least, very watered down version of a campaign setting.
Do you think Greyhawk would have been better after running the game?
Oh yeah,
instead of right after here's how you make your own.
So no,
but it's I'm gonna do this back. I'm there. Just buckle up. I parked the car. Let's go for a walk in the woods. It is a cool example though. It is like, hey, here's some tips. Here's how you make your stuff. Here's what you could make. Granted, Greyhawk's, oldest time. It's been around for a bit. Here's our current version, iteration of Greyhawk. Also, we've left open just enough for you to expand upon it yourself and take these lessons and stuff we were just talking about and build it out. And, you're a new DM and maybe you don't have time to write all this stuff. Well, here is this world you could basically just read through this and start playing today. It's really, really rad that it's here. I do wonder if they weren't trying to keep all these books the same amount of pages, if it would have been here or if it would have been its own book. Because I'm of two minds of one, yes, easily, especially for a 50th anniversary, easily could have been its own book. And I kind of almost think it should have been. But as a bonus add-in, It's
Yeah.
like you got a free module.
No, it 100% is. Yeah, it is like a free module, and it's big. I think it's in the right place in the book.
Okay.
I feel like it's in the right place behind creating campaign, because it's that nice jump off from this is a good idea of what a campaign should look like. Here is a whole campaign setting.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's just enough to be where you can mold it in, and you can change it however you may need. I just think it's a lot. And it's so good. It is so good. Greyhawk is amazing. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that I don't like Greyhawk, and I
It
don't
sounds like
what
that's
I
what you're
read.
saying.
It's great. I just don't know that it belongs in this book in this capacity. I think that they would have been better served having something smaller here that is more bare bones than what Greyhawk is, and fleshing out Greyhawk even more in its own standalone module.
Selling it separately?
Selling it separately.
Hmm.
That's how I feel about
Do you
Greyhawk.
think we no longer get a Greyhawk module or setting guide because of this?
Because of this? Yeah, I think
Okay.
so. I think we'll get stuff that'll happen in Greyhawk, but we're not going to get any. We're not. This is our meat and potatoes of Greyhawk.
Yeah.
And maybe that's sad, because I think it could have been even better if it was its own standalone product.
That could almost be said no matter what they came up with, though.
Yeah, true.
If they had thrown in their, hey, we came up with Richardland, and it's this whole area, and we want this cool example of what you could create, and you're like, I really like Richardland. I wish it was its own book. Like,
I don't know. I just think that it's too good. I think Greyhawk is too
but maybe
good.
they built it out as much as they want to. Like, this is it. This is where they're at, and they want you as the players and DM to run with it. Everyone has their own Greyhawk. At least if you're gonna give an example, it's a very high quality example.
It's a very high quality. Like I said, I think the biggest critique that I have from it is it makes you feel like crap. Because you go from reading the creating a campaign and being all like, yeah, I'm gonna make a campaign and it's gonna be cool. I have a whole idea for like this whole system, like this whole political engine. It's like got all this intrigue. Oh, Greyhawk's way better.
Yeah, but Greyhawk's also been written over the course of 50 years.
Way better.
You iterate on an idea for
I can't write anything.
half a century.
And they're like, wait a second, I didn't even think about all this stuff that is written into Greyhawk. Like, there's so much detail.
Well, okay,
in there.
well, so there we go then.
It's insane.
That's the point. It told you how to do it. You read it, and now it reframes. Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah,
and then you take that and you turn it into your own thing.
It just makes me feel bad. No, it's good. Greyhawk is great.
Like I said,
awesome.
I will chase my own tail on this topic because I simultaneously love that it's here and wish it was elsewhere.
Yeah,
will not agree with myself on this.
Super fun read, and it's so good. And like I said, it's just kind of, I don't know, to me feels a little bit out of place and a little bit heavy for this section.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Richard, tell us about cosmology because I didn't read this.
Chapter, we have cosmology,
what?
which is just planes, planar travel, and the multiverse. It's actually really cool. Cosmology is just dealing with planes.
Necessary. Glad it's here.
Yeah, it's all the planes. Everything about planar travel. So this is anything you'd ever want to know about the multiverse in general. There's a lot of really cool stuff in here. It's a fun read, especially when you start to get into things like the Blood War, which if you're familiar with, like the war going on in Avernus and all that stuff, it's all here. All the really cool planes that you have that you can go to, which there are some planes that are insanity, just like, beasts and jungles and everything like that. And then you have planes that are literally just caverns with wind blowing through them, which are horrible. And nobody should ever want to go there for any reason. It's a giant prison plane, to the city of Sigil, which is just like this massive, oh God, what's the name of that movie with the city in the space thing, all the people living there?
Elysium.
Sci-fi. It's named after the main guy. They just did a movie about it and everybody hated it, and I thought it was fun. The planets or something. I can't remember. My brain is not working right now, but it's a really cool city where a bunch of people are living, kind of like a Halo ring. Sigil is cool.
Was it Halo?
No, it wasn't Halo. No, Sigil is cool. It's the the city at the center of the wheel of the plains is what's in here, and that's
Morbius.
Not Morbius.
Yeah, but you love that movie.
Oh, Valerian.
There you go. See, we got there.
We got there. For the record, I do like Morbius. It was a fun movie. I don't care what you say.
Oh, wait. Everyone's turning off the video. Come back.
But no, Sigil reminds me of like the main city in that, because it's a big melting pot of like all these different planar beings and like a hub of major commerce and everything like that. It's really cool to have it in here. This is also where you dip your toes into wild space. You're talking about the astral plane and everything like that, which is really cool. Planes are cool. I love the descriptions in here, and I love how much information we get on all these planes that most people are never going to touch.
Yeah.
But it's fun and it's neat stuff, especially if you're looking at high level play and you're like, your character's getting bored from walking around plain old terra firma. But I like it.
One, yes, I'm extremely glad this is here. This is incredibly necessary. Those who will use this constantly, because you're going to be doing some super cool Spelljammer, hoppy around the plains kind of game or something. It's going to be awesome. B, Valerian. It just hit me that that's the movie you're talking about, because I had to like cycle that through the process.
Oh, you just got to that movie?
Well, I mean,
I still can't remember the whole name of the movie. It's like the
Valerian and something
of
something. Yes.
Yeah. 1,000 cities.
Yes.
Or Planet of 1,000. I can't remember the name of it.
You no cap all all riz whatever like this movie.
Valerian?
Yeah.
Oh, it was fun.
Okay. Corey and I hated this movie so much that we turned around entirely negative into a positive. Like we went full circle to where we hate, like we love to hate this movie.
Oh, come
and
on.
I bought this on Blu-ray. I own this movie because it's so bad. I wanted to watch it whenever I wanted.
I think
it's such a garbage piece of film.
We're jumping the shark major on this episode real quick to talk about a sci-fi movie that bombed. The chemistry of the two leads, horrible.
It's awful.
Horrible chemistry between those
bad.
two. So bad, and is like the most rigid acting ever. But shapeshifter Rihanna was so good. She was so good. And just in general, I had a fun time with it. So yes, I actually enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Okay.
One of the 10 people on the internet that did.
Well, wait, thanks for derailing us from the episode, Richard.
So anyway, that's how Valerian can be related to Dungeons and Dragons, the City of Sigil.
We do the Valerian campaign?
Yeah, the Valerian campaign.
City of 1,000 Doors.
You could totally do that here. Yeah. The next chapter we have is Treasure.
This is the other chapter that DMs are going to reference all the time.
Yeah, so this is all your information on all your trade goods, your coins, and this is where you get to like the really big stuff. And actually, it's kind of cool because there's a bunch of different things here. But magic items, this is what everybody was waiting for.
You say big things, yes. This is the magic item book.
Magic items was like the thing, but this is not just magic items that exist. This is creating magic items,
sure,
and stuff like that. So there's other stuff in here. Creating magic items is one. Artifacts is another one, which is really really cool. And sentient magic items, creating all those things. I like the creation stuff. All the tables that come along with this are really fun. And then, of course, all the magic items are fun. It's just cool to see like so many different items. There's a lot of pages in here.
It's so many. It's like 98 or something.
Magic
so many
items.
Things.
Yeah.
Not a ton of changes. There's some new stuff, but not a ton of changes.
There are some changes in there.
But there are some. Go to Reddit.
Yo, yeah,
or
no,
better
if you want
YouTubers
that,
like Nerd Immersion, stuff like that. Dungeon Dudes, I'm sure will hit it and everything like that too.
Yeah.
Other people will cover this, absolutely, and there are for sure changes, important changes, even big changes. The biggest changes, they're not that big. Sometimes boots of striding and springing are just even better than ever. Just every turn, it's like the jump spell. It's awesome. Rudolph is unstoppable now. He's jumping everywhere.
He's jumping everywhere. No, it's good. I like how they have it sorted. Makes things super helpful.
Oh, for sure.
It's going to be very
different
easy.
Kind of magic item, and
exactly.
then also A to Z.
It's going to be very easy to find a magic item that you're looking for. It's also going to be very easy to find a magic item to give to somebody.
Yeah.
Like if you're all like, I want to give somebody a ring. That's the thing I want to give away today, is a ring. It's very easy for you to go to a section, find all your rings, find a ring that fits it, or not find a ring that fits it, and then go to the creation and create a ring that fits it. I like it. It's good. There's a lot of information in here. It's going to, like he said, take you a lot of time cross-referencing if you wanted to actually see all the differences in all these magical items. But it might be worth it if it's definitely something you're interested in.
Yeah, or just, like I said, go to Reddit. Someone's already put this up.
Yeah.
I know this is a fact because I've seen the list.
I've seen the list.
I've seen the list. It's real. It exists. I swear to you, I've seen it with my own eyes.
Our last chapter is Bastions.
So we'll skip this one.
Bastions are in here, and you know what Bastions are. It was one of their biggest selling points of the Dungeon Master's Guide was we're going to do Bastions, and this is the place where your characters are going to create their own little hovels that will eventually become palaces or
big hovels,
casinos or whatever, and your players will be able to do more stuff. It's if you're familiar with playing any MMO, you know what a bastion is. This is a thing for you to put all the currency that you've grinded for the last 3 years on your characters into. It's a place for you to sink in money, 100%. There's so much to do with money in here, but it also is something just to do to make players feel like they have a little bit more ownership. This is for the Animal Crossing and Stardew Valley players out there, I think, to be able to do a little of sim building.
Mm-hmm. Good for those who want homework when you're in between sessions. You know, if you want to manage your bastion, from week to week while you're not actually at the table, like, yeah, it's a great time.
Good time.
I'm going to be really hard on this. Richard might not be as hard on it. We'll see. We've said it before. Or I've said it before. I think we've said it. If you are playing a campaign that from the ground up was built with the expectation of bastions being like a pillar, this is probably awesome, right? If you're just trying to plop this into any old game, like this wouldn't work in Strahd.
No.
Like, this ain't happening, y'all. Like, and I'm sure you could shoehorn it in there. You could make it work, but there's not enough cash flow right now. Like, what would you even do?
Yeah.
Let alone like, what are you gonna have some husk run it for you? Like, I don't know. So it's not for me. I don't think it's for you. If Garrett were on here, he would be shilling bastions.
Oh, he'd be singing the praise
for the next 35, 40 minutes.
We see you, Garrett. We see you.
And when we do get him on to like talk, or like, well, I'm sure we'll do like a wrap up after Monster Man and everything comes up to give like overall thoughts of all the 3 releases and everything. We'll have to have him on for that. And he'll probably talk about Bastions. In fact, he's playing a game right now where he's using the Bastion system. And he's going to be coming on at some point. Just crap. I forgot we even talked about this because he's going to be talking about how his experience with Bastions went.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll have that to look forward to.
We'll have that.
If you enjoy Bastions and you're putting them in your game, don't let us deter you from that. It feels like a waste of pages to me, personally, but I might be, in the minority. What do you think?
So, Bastions. I did not like Bastions when it was first introduced to us in Unearthed Arcana. I did not like it the more we talked about it and how much they pushed it, and I didn't really see the usefulness in it.
Mm-hmm.
We got this book, and I read Bastions.
Mm-hmm.
I think this has a place in the game world. I think it's as fleshed out as they could make it.
Uh-huh.
I think it's a functional system, and I do think that there are going to be players out there that are going to use this. I think, like you said, it needs to be a campaign that was built up for it, and that's not just monetarily speaking. The turns, Bastion turns, are insane. And that's just because Bastions are really only going to be good for campaigns that lend themselves to much passage of time.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. You can't be doing the day by day by day by day.
No,
it's got to be months.
Not a single game that we have played in the last 2 years that Bastions would have fit in, just based solely not even on cash flow, but just solely on timeline without significant time jumps inserted into the game. It would literally be like taking a Bastion turn once every 6 or 7 months.
Yeah.
And then you'd have to spend that entire night campaign just doing Bastion turns, which is really, really weird. I think that if you built a game where Bastions was the center point of it, you could definitely make it work. You're playing a very different game at that point than what most people would consider normal Dungeons and Dragons. I think my biggest problem with Bastions is that it's in this book.
Really? You think it should be its own?
I think it should be. It's got a really huge part in this book that doesn't need to be in here. I think that a lot of these rules should have been in the player's handbook if they were going to do anything with it.
Oh, PHP. Okay.
There are so many rules in here for Bastions that are for the players to reference. It doesn't make sense to me for them to be in this book, because you are going to have to depend on just your Bastion tracker sheet to know this information. You're going to have to write it all down. You're not going to be able to reference it because as a player, you probably aren't going to buy this book. You're going to have to go to your dungeon master and have him explain to you for
sure.
the 15th time what you can craft and how many hirelings you have,
Yeah.
let alone what it's going to be like when you get to the next level of the Bastions. There is some information in here that is very DM sided, right? So I can see why they don't want that to be the onus on the player to know these mechanics and learn them and everything like that. But the majority of it is player knowledge stuff. This is player facing information that's not in a player's handbook. That's weird. Like, Bastions should have either been its own standalone book, or not even just like a full book, but just like a small add-on book, or at the very least a much smaller portion of this book, because most of it should have been in the player's handbook. Like, all of the player forward Bastion information, so the stuff that the players are going to want to reference all the time, I feel like would be better serviced in the player's handbook, and then the GM stuff, the background stuff for Bastions, to be in this book. Instead, everything is in this book. I think that's weird.
You grazed upon my exact thoughts of where I think this should be when you mentioned like a smaller, supplementary book.
Yeah.
I truly believe, even if they wanted to release it now as like some big, like, hey, celebrating the release of the DMG and the PHP being out, here's this. I think it should have been a free supplementary mini guide on D&D Beyond, and anyone could claim it, and anyone could, download, print those rules, whatever, just access them on whatever, and just make it free. Because what's in here that's, I mean, yeah, sure, there's some specialized rules and stuff like that, and like, oh, everything can't be free, but it's the 50th anniversary. Throw some bones, like, hey, here's a cool system that is just going to, if you get people doing Bastions, you're talking about players that are going to be playing for a long time, probably. So you're just throwing out a hook. This is bait, right?
Yeah.
This is, you're going to want them in. So yeah, just offer this whole system for free. Don't bury it into the DMG for, like you said, for the players to have to go to them for all the rules for it and everything like that. And
it's just weird. And like I said, I said this earlier, there were a couple of things that I felt didn't belong or didn't need to be in this book. Number 1 was background creation. Number 2 was Greyhawk. And number 3 is Bastions. Those are my like top 3 things that I feel were put into this book because they had to hit a page count.
I was going to say, you're shaving off like a third of the book.
Exactly. And it's interesting because, like I said, I feel like that's why Bastions feels like, okay, we'll leave everything else. We'll leave Greyhawk alone. It's great. Leave it in there. It's a great example. Shows you what the potential of creating a campaign could be, especially if you over prep
for 50 years.
Yeah. But Bastions feels like a late minute addition to fill page numbers.
Which is funny because they have been touting this as such a big thing since the playtest.
A huge thing. And is it because they realized themselves they didn't really belong in here and they had to really hype you up for it? To be all like, it's coming. We got it. You're going to love it. Because we love it. Yay. And I'm not saying Bastions are innately bad like I have in the past. I've often said I hate Bastions. They're horrible. This is a functional rule set I will never want to play with.
Yeah.
I don't want to run a casino and have hirelings running a casino. I don't want to run a theater troupe where once every 7 months in my D&D campaign, I put on a show where I roll dice. And the benefit for this is that I have a theater dice which means if I, I'm doing a persuasion or a performance check in the next 3 months, I'll get to add a single D8 to that. And it only costs me 80,000 gold and a upkeep of a theater. I don't care. It's not me. I'm not the target audience for this.
And there's a target audience,
and there is a target audience for this.
They're gonna love this.
Like I said, I'm not saying Bastions
it's just not us.
Bad. I just think that it feels incredibly out of place in this book, and a lot of it seems like it could have, should have been somewhere more player facing. Now that sucks for the player's handbook, because the player's handbook has a lot of stuff in it.
Yeah.
And if you're trying to keep page counts the way they are, these arbitrary rules for page numbers start to, I think, hinder things. I get them wanting to keep symmetry and keep things the way they are. But
I mean, even like the printing machines and stuff, like you have to have like certain page numbers. Like that's not just like if we take away 3 pages, no, like there's certain like amounts that has to be. Yeah. So yeah, for symmetry and everything else, and but now, Richard, imagine it, right? Let me paint you a word picture. No, that's not this grand. You're sitting there with you and your fellow, party members. You've just come into the town of Greyhawk, and there's a building for sale.
And I look at it and I'm like, do any of you have 60,000 gold?
Yeah,
for a small business startup.
Oh yeah, that's the other thing is because they're not looking at it as each of you like it's like sharing a bastion.
Oh no, it's all
you
yours.
all have your own bastions.
Like, no, you're on your own. You can
like co-op them together a bit. There's some stuff for that, like some mergey kind of things, but you each have your own.
Yeah, so you're gonna have to go to the Greater Bank of Greyhawk.
This is Animal Crossing.
Business loan.
Yeah. Tom Nooks and Greyhawk is going to give you a big old bag of
bells.
Bank,
he's got a big old bag of bells and he shakes it out. He's like, you can have this.
Yep. No problem. Yeah, no issue at all. You're going to owe me for life.
Yeah.
So yeah, those of you who love Bastions, congratulations. You got them here. Don't be mean to your DM when you have to borrow their book for these rules.
Yeah. That's it for the chapters. After that, we have the appendices.
Yeah, multiples.
Yep, we have a couple of those. The lore glossary is back here. Appendix A is the lore glossary. It's not huge. It's just the right size.
So my thoughts.
I like it
on this. 2 versions. I'm on 2 coins on this. One, lore glossary was touted a lot. Like we knew it was going to be a big feature. It's a lot less than I expected
more.
And I kind of wanted more. I say that as someone who literally just finished Worlds and Realms. I do. I want more. Like I wish there were more here. Straight up. But I'm glad what is here, because it's extremely helpful if you don't know who Elminster is to be able to flip to the back, drop to E, see that it's a notable person, and just be like, oh, the powerful and ancient archmage from the Forgotten Realms setting. And, like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's incredibly useful for just a surface level who they are. I did expect like some backstory for them and like not just like a single sentence, but for quick reference, it's great. I'm glad it's here.
And I like the pronunciation. That's
yes,
super cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I love that, being able to actually pronounce some of these names that I've been mispronouncing forever. So it's great to have that. So this is where, like I said, the bastions being in here, what do you do with all that extra space? You expand the lore glossary.
Yeah.
Take out bastions and expand the lore glossary. You could fill all of those pages the bastions took up with lore. There's so much lore in this game.
I just scrolled down to Hadar, and it has 2 pronunciations. It's either Hadar or Hadar.
No, it's Hadar.
It's both.
Hadar.
There's also Hadar.
Hadar.
They don't even know.
It's dialects.
Yeah,
Regional.
You're right.
But yeah, the lore glossary is cool. I would have loved for Bastions not to be there and lore glossary to have been bigger. But I like what we got.
I love that, like in this world where you've come around to Bastions not being the worst thing ever, you still just want nothing to do with it. You're like, get it out of my book.
I don't want it in this book. The next appendix that we have is maps,
which
I did not expect. I knew we were going to get a couple of handy maps. This is borderline useless, but also really cool. And that's because you're probably not going to use most of these maps that are in here. Some of them are visually very confusing. Like there's the Crossroads Inn, which I stared at for way too long trying to figure out the layout of. And
The Crossroads Village?
I was like, oh my gosh, where is the bar in this bar? There is no bar. There's just a kitchen. And I was like trying to figure it out. And then I realized that the design, I was like, why is there a tree inside? It's not. It's because it's like a walled off area and there's stables and everything like that. I'm just stupid. This has nothing against this map. There are some really cool stuff on here though, like a ship map.
Yes,
Is very convenient to have a very simple ship. Like you don't necessarily have to have a grand oceanic voyage that you need a ship map for, but you take your characters and you set them on a ship and you're like, all right, it's 1 day's travel. You're going to go from this coast over down here. And then one of your players is like, I go below ship. What do I see? And then you're all like, I don't know anything about ship design. I have no, hold on. And you go back here, you have a simple ship design and you have everything you need. You have measurements, you have layout. It's all right there. Super convenient. There's a wizard's tower. How many people have wizard's towers in your game? All of you. There's wizard towers everywhere.
my favorite one is Spooky House.
Spooky house. There's spooky houses everywhere.
There's always a spooky house.
There's a dragon lair everywhere. If you're writing a campaign, it's going to have a spooky house, a dragon's lair, a crossroads inn, a boat trip at one point or another, and a wizard's tower. Fact.
I wish they for people who do the whole digital tabletop and stuff, they're probably gonna be disappointed. This isn't like full color, beautiful artwork, blah 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 blah. I kind of like find the like hand drawn black and white sketch like pen style endearing.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, I like that that look. And that's why I said it's kind of like it's either completely useless to you or cool and fun.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's not this highly detailed tabletop map that you're
none of
gonna
them
throw out. But it is a really good tool, even if you never show it to your players.
And they all have a different style.
To paint a word picture.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That's why I like it. And that's
just for having on your side of the screen.
That's why I use the ship example, is because it's like you get your players in, you get that one player, Tyler, who asks
It's me.
so many questions about the environment. And you have to have answers for all of them. And making them up means that you're going to forget some of them. And he'd be like, wait a second, you said there were only 2 doors in this room. Where's that third door come from? And you're like, you know what? I forgot it was there, okay? Well, now, when you describe the room, you can have a visual for it, and you can be able to reference that to better paint a word picture for your players. They're not perfect, but I do like the way they're designed, and it's cool to have a bunch of... There's a lot more of them back here than I expected.
I enjoy them.
Yeah, it's really, really neat.
But now we're to one of my favorite sections of the book. Tracking
Your
sheets.
Favorite appendix. And the final appendix is tracking sheets.
Yep. If you're on a D&D Beyond app, there is a... download all sheets button, which is just wonderful because it's everything. It's game expectations. It's your travel planner. It's your NPC tracker. It's your settlement tracker, campaign journal. It's your DM's character tracker, which, gosh, that can come in handy so often. Campaign conflicts. It's magic item tracker. It's a Bastion tracker, which that one you don't even need. This is just super neat. And one thing they mention here, the magic item tracker, that one is interesting because this game tells you, or this book tells you how many magic items each
to give your players.
player should have by which levels.
Yeah.
And this little tracker is like, okay, well, give them, it'll check these little boxes so they know it's this many by this level, like levels 1 to 4, 6 commons, 4 uncommons, and 1 rare. Are you kidding me, Watsy?
I need more magic items.
No!
Strahd.
We'll see. Wink.
I need more magic items. This book says I do.
This book says by level...
You know how many I have? 2. I need so many more.
This book says by level 11 to 16, you should have 2 legendary magic items, 7 very rares, 11 rares, 7 uncommons, and only 3 commons. Like,
I'm due.
What?
I'm due, sir.
You know what I love about this?
I have a whole book of options.
This is insane. Like, it's so many.
It's so many. No, there's some really funny stuff on these sheets. I saw
the artwork on these sheets is gorgeous.
I saw one. I watched a couple videos of people talking about the DMG and stuff like that, and one of them brought up the NPC tracking sheet.
Yeah.
Because the bottom part of that NPC tracking sheet is secret. which they made the implication. I forget who it was. I wish I could remember which creator said this, but it was funny that the implication of is that now every single NPC in every single game that uses tracking sheets is going to have a deep dark secret. Because you can't just leave that blank.
No, of course.
So every NPC that you encounter has got to have a very deeply heavy implication secret that they're going to have, or it's going to be something stupid like is lactose intolerant.
Doesn't want anyone to know.
Doesn't want anyone to know.
No.
Yeah.
It's that, or
I love it.
when I was 7 years old, I pushed my brother into the well, but I told people he tripped in.
The other thing, when you were reading tracking sheets over, love them. I like having them in here. More tracking sheets.
Well, babies.
Not everybody's going to use them.
Yeah.
You're not going to use all of them, but it's really cool to include them. You mentioned one in here that is very important because we glossed over, at least I glossed over, this entire section in the book. So we're going to have to rewind, put that thing down, flip it, and reverse it, is to mention traveling.
Yeah.
Huge now. Traveling is massive. Traveling got a huge overhaul in this book. And there is a tracking sheet for it to help you track it if it's something you're interested in.
Mm-hmm.
Travel is still an optional thing. You don't have to have travel. Like you can just say okay, you go to the next town over.
Right.
End scene. Done. But if you want to include travel in your game, long travel, days travel, weeks travels, months travels, there is a huge new section in here, and I think it's under chapter 4, so creating adventures around the exploration area. There are all new rules for ruling out your cross-world travel, and that's everything from encounters to weather effects to actually feeding your characters food and water and exhaustion and all that fun stuff. So yeah, that was a big one that I forgot to bring up when we were in the moment, is travel got a huge overhaul. So if you want to do creative travel in your games, there's new rules for that.
Yeah.
Love
and the planner's kind of cool. It's just your origin, destination, when it's going to start, when it's going to end. It's got it set in 3 stages. How long, how fast are they traveling? How many days or hours will it take if they go that speed? Some narrative notes to keep in mind, or what kind of challenges do you expect them to run into along the way? It's just cool that it's there.
Yeah,
So, for
cool.
those who are prepping everything, than us, we're rolling this chart and see if anything happens. Ooh, they're going to fight up to 6 werewolves. They fought 1 werewolf.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, they're all overpowered now, thanks to the 2024 Player's Handbook. I'm not salty about it, but I wish they were stronger. Or that you guys had rolled more.
I
werewolves.
mean, if it makes you feel better, I'm not very strong, so there's that.
We'll get to this soon, guys. You're the homebrew, whatever you want to call it, class you're playing just got an update today.
Yeah, it did. Which we want to talk about. Well, I want to talk about because I like homebrew stuff. It's fun.
If you listen to Worlds Beyond Numbers, which the Wizard Witch and the Wild one, we'll get to reviewing the witch class in the next so many episodes. Yeah. It's on the docket. We want to actually get some games in with the new update before we actually go through the review.
We talk about it.
But we're definitely going to be doing one because it's real fun.
But yeah, that is the our first impressions and kind of talking a little bit about the things we liked and or didn't like about the 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide. Overall, I like this book. I think that it is a good purchase in general for most DMs. Not every DM, because there are things in here that you do not need as a seasoned DM. I could tell you that you don't need it at all for, certain people of a certain level, but I do think that it has utility even for those seasoned DMs. I think it has utility. There's not nothing here for those high-end players who already know everything because of the stuff in the toolkit for obscure rulings, for obscure situations, and the magical items, and for the creation of things to ease the creation of things like magical items, spells, and creatures, and everything like that. Overall, I enjoyed the book. I like it. Obviously, there's some things that I would change about it, which we've already discussed.
Yep.
But overall, I'm happy with it, and I think that it is something that you should pick up, in my opinion, if you are interested in, or you are currently running games and you just want to have another resource to make certain things easier for you.
Okay. Where I'm at right now with this is it fully depends on, well, two things, two main points. One, are your players playing the new versions of the Player's Handbook characters? If so, you got to buy all 3 books at this point, because if you've got stronger PCs, you're gonna want the stronger encounters. How do you know how to balance the stronger encounters? You need this book. Well, guess what? You also need the new stat blocks. That book's coming out soon. So now you need the 3rd book. You need your new monster manual. You just complete your collection. You're gonna need it. If you've bought into it, you're gonna need this. If you have the original 2014 5th edition trilogy and you're just sticking with those 3, you're okay. Do I think the encounter builder in this book is an improvement? Yes, absolutely. That one had it to where when you were like, oh, you've got one monster, great. Here's your XP, allowance, whatever, your CRs. Oh, you're adding another monster? Well, now there's a multiplication effect you gotta like add in there to try to figure out how to add stuff. That's gone.
That multiplication. Ugh.
So now you're just like, here's your total, fill it out. And it just by doing that, it's already improved, let alone we don't have the new version of the monsters yet. So I think it's just gonna be even better. Faith be with you on this, Watsy. So if you're running, like, I guess end of the day, if you're running the original 3 books and you've got your supplementary books and you're good to go and you do not want to touch these 2024 books, okay, you're fine. You don't have to change. If you are dipping into these new editions, yes, buy this book 100%. I think it's an improvement over the last version, and I don't think you're going to regret it by any means, and it's frankly necessary if you're playing any of the new stuff. Mm-hmm. So there you go. Plus, this has Loth on the cover if you get this alternate version, and that's the best cover they've ever made. Yeah. So you got to get it for that alone. That's where I'm at. You don't need the Bastions unless you really want to play Bastions. If you want to do Bastions, well, guess what? You have to buy this book. If you want the new updated magic items, you got to get this book.
There's kind of something in this book for everybody. Like, there's a lot of stuff in here. I think that this book would even be worth it for somebody who is just interested in Greyhawk.
You just beat me to it. Yeah. Because if you want Greyhawk, you're getting this book.
And it's here. And there's a lot of really good stuff in there. And if you're interested in running in Greyhawk and you want any background on Greyhawk, this is your book. Yeah. This is it. That's the thing is.
5th edition, at least. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of really good stuff in here for a lot of different people, which is why it's an easy recommend for me to say buy it. And again, like, there is going to be stuff in here that is useless to the seasoned DM. Like the first 2 chapters, I don't need that. You don't need that. There's a lot of DMs out there that don't need those things, but they're there, especially for the people that do need them. Yeah. Yes.
Yep. So
and they're worth a read, even if you know it.
If this is your first DMG, just rest assured knowing this is the best entry point you could have.
Yes. And any question that you're going to have is going to be answered in here. This version of it, at least, because the amount of, I don't want to say hand holding because it sounds negative.
It does sound negative, but in this instance, it's warranted.
The first 2 chapters is immense. Like, they are holding your hand and walking you through what it is like to be the one that takes up the mantle in that group,
which I appreciate greatly.
Yeah. So that's where I find this to be an accessible book for DMs of all ages and sizes and shapes and colors.
But with that, thank you everyone for tuning into this episode. If you're listening on all those audio podcasting services like Apple or Spotify or any of those other things, 5 stars are super appreciated. If you're on YouTube, a like or a subscription is awesome. We're on a road to 1,000 and you're all the best. For now, I've been Tyler.
And I've been Richard.
We've been True Strike. Bye everyone.
Goodbye.
Hey adventurers, thanks again for joining us today. Please be sure to give us a follow on your favorite podcasting platforms and YouTube. If there's any questions you'd like to write into the show, you can hit us up on X, Threads, or Instagram. New episodes release every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Thank you for listening to True Strike.